Welcome back everyone, I'm K Plays Games, this is EVE Online, and today we're taking a look at Planetary Production. Bit of a clue in what you're seeing in front of you, beautiful stuff. Planetary Production is a more or less self-contained industrial activity which produces a huge array of different items, all of which are made on planets instead of in stations. This activity is only available to Omega status players. Free-to-play alpha accounts do not have access to Planetary Production. The items produced are arranged in 5 different tiers, starting with the raw resources at tier 0, which are then refined into a planetary factory into tier 1 products. These tier 1 items are then combined with each other to form tier 2 items. Tier 2 items are then combined together in various combinations to make tier 3, and tier 3 are then combined together to make tier 4. As you can imagine, making tier 4 takes an awful lot of work and may be very difficult for a player to do all on their own. We can make use of several third-party websites to see all the products and the uses they have at the various stages of the production chain. This is the EVE University wiki page on planetary commodities. As we see, this is the tier 1 process materials, because all these resources here are the P0 raw materials, and their only purpose is to be changed from P0 to P1, so noble gases' only use is to be turned into oxygen, and felsic magma's only use is to be turned into silicon, and so forth all the way down this list. Immediate uses, none known, means that bacteria's only use is to be combined with one of these other two to make something else further on down the chain. Oxygen does have a use. It can be used as part of the POS fuel block. POS fuel means station fuel, so that's part of the fuel block recipe and some booster reactions. And we come down, this is the P2 stuff. As we see, you get 2 different P1s, you combine them together in a factory on a planet and you get P2. And again, quite a lot of them have no known instant application. Their only reason for existing is to be combined with more P2s to make P3s. But here we're starting to see a lot more purple entries, which are useful uses of them. Rocket fuel can be used as T2 components in making Tech 2 missiles, I know that. Same with transmitters. Construction blocks are used to make all Tech 2 ships. Coolant and enriched uranium again are used as part of station fuel as are mechanical parts. Then we scroll down even further. Here you get 2 or 3 different P2 inputs and you get a P3 outcome. Again, some of them only exist to get combined with other P3s and P2s to make P4. And as we see, they're getting more and more uses, more T2 stuff, cloaking devices, structures, implants, and right at the bottom here, P4, all the P4 stuff exists to be built as part of a station. One other thing to note is that there are 8 different types of planet, each of them having different resources available on them. The 8 different types of planet are barren, gas, ice, lava, oceanic, plasma, storm, and temperate. And a temperate is what we're looking at right now. Some resources can only be found on one of these types of planets. Autotrophs, for example, can only be found on temperate planets like this one. Felsic magma can only be found on lava planets, and reactive gas can only be found on gas planets. Players start with the ability to use only one planet, but the skill Interplanetary Consolidation, found here in the Planet Management section, unlocks the use of 1 extra planet to a maximum of 6 when you reach level 5. This is another website which is absolutely superb. You can mouse over on the left hand side here each of the planets and it will draw a line and tell you exactly what can be found on that planet and what can be made from it. To stop it from changing every time you scroll, you simply left click and that locks it in place. So storm planets can make suspended plasma, whose one and only purpose in life is to be converted into plasmoids at P1. And then plasmoids can be used to build rocket fuel superconductors and transmitters. So we'll click rocket fuel, and we see to make rocket fuel as well as plasmoids we need electrolytes, which come from ionic solutions, which come from either gas or storm planets. So storm planets on their own can make rocket fuel because they provide both of the P1 products to make rocket fuel. You can do this with every other build queue. If you have a look at things like nanofactories, okay, these need industrial explosives at P3, Eugenio superconductors at P3, and apparently reactive metals at P1 all go into a nanofactory. And then obviously the explosives have their own build chain with fertilizer and polytextiles, and the superconductors have superconductors and synthetic oil build queues, all of which have planets that they need. So you'll probably find that for all of these P4, all the planets are lit up because you need one of each of them. Now look at these need all these basic resources, which is absolutely insane. So this website is excellent. I highly recommend you spend some time browsing through this and understand all the build queues and how this all works. It's very well put together, I like it a lot. As with all industrial activities, the first thing we have to do is work out what we want to build on our planets. If you're making stations or nanite paste or Tech 2 items or anything else we saw on that list on the Eugenio wiki website, then you'll know exactly what you want to make as a way of reducing your build costs and thereby increasing your profits. If you just want to make planetary items for cash, then again, there are websites which can be of use. This is the Fuzzworks website for Planetary Production profit. See here, you just click the profit, and apparently wetware mainframes will make us the most profit. But the problem with this is that wetware mainframes are a tier 4 product, and these are extremely difficult to build. You'll probably have to build them over 2 or 3 different alternative characters, and they're produced in very small amounts. So even though they make the most profit, they're not perhaps the best thing to be making. If you come down the list a little bit, these Eugenio superconductors are tier 3, so these are slightly easier and slightly faster to build than wetware mainframes, and because you're building them faster, you might make more overall profit by selling more of them at 59,000 than you will selling wetware mainframes at 84. Again, if we come even further down, here's the first tier 2 item, rocket fuel. Rocket fuel is even easier to build than the Eugenio superconductors were. Easier and faster and in greater quantity. So again, selling lots of rocket fuel at around 16,000 might end up making you more money than selling much less Eugenio superconductors at 60,000. But again, this page does not show you the market demand for all these items, so you'll have to do some market research on your own and figure out what is best to build. Once you have chosen what you want to build, you'll then have to find a system which has all the various planets you need to build that item. And this can also take some investigation work. Or of course you can go the other way and simply have a look at which planets are available to you in your home system, and then use the flowchart website we looked at earlier to work out what you can make from those, and then use the price website to work out which one is best for selling. And of course we can use our old friend Dotlan Eve Maps to have a look at planets. We'll just pick one at random, we'll just go here and then here. And when you've clicked on the system, you click Celestials and you will see a list of all the different types of planet it has. So the system of Cat has lava, barren, temperate, gas, ice. So you can click your way through Dotlan until you find the system that you think will be able to provide you everything you need in one place. You can of course split your planets over several systems. It just makes logistics much easier if they're all in the same place. Planetary colonies are very much like ships. They have a power grid and CPU limitation which affects how many facilities you can have on any one planet. This can be increased with the Command Center upgrade skill, again found in the Planet Management section. Here it is. Each level of this will add more power grid and CPU to your Planetary Command Center, which is what is used to construct the rest of the colony. Your planetary facilities on the planet will need to be linked together with physical links, to be able to move the items around between extractors and factories, and these transport links cost power grid and CPU based on the distance that they cover. So one other thing we can consider is the radius of the planets. If a system has more than one of the same type of planet, like this system does, I'll open them here, it has this storm planet, and this storm planet, and another storm planet. In fact, it's got 4 storm planets. So we'll open them all out in their own little pages. And what we want to pay attention to here is the radius, which is this entry here. Smaller planets means that your links will be smaller and therefore use less power grid and CPU, which means you can then use that saved power grid and CPU to build up more extractors and factories, because you don't want to be spending all your power grid and all your CPU building roads. So this one is 14,000 kilometers, which is huge, so we would not want that one. This one here is 6380, that's pretty big. These two are much smaller, 4940 and 4490, so we'd be choosing between these two. Okay, so now we've chosen what we want to make, which system we're going to be doing it in, and which exact planets in that system we're going to use. How do we go about setting up a colony in the first place? As I mentioned briefly earlier on, colonies are created by the Planetary Command Center. There are different command centers for each different type of planet. You can find these on the market under Planetary Infrastructure. And then command centers, very simple, they're very cheap. As we see, 81,000 each, they're seeded by NPCs, they're widely available, so these are not difficult to find. Once you have your command center on board your ship, travel to the system you want to place your colony on, locate the planet you want, and then open its info page, and click View Planetary Industry down here, or you can just right click the planet icon in space and click View Planetary Industry. Either method does the same thing, opens us planet view. The next thing we need to concentrate on is the resources on the planet. So you click the scan button up here at the top left, and you select which resource you want to look at, and that will produce this heat map. The accuracy of this heat map can be improved by 2 skills, planetology and advanced planetology. In my experience, maxing out these skills really isn't needed. Take them as high as you want. They just increase the resolution of this. It doesn't suddenly make this jump all the way over here. It's not that important. And you move this slider. I mean, that's not giving you any information at all. Everything's white. So you just move the slider up until you get a decent result. As it's a heat map, white indicates where the best resources are, and green and yellow is slightly less, so you always want to aim for the white. So let's say we want to make suspended plasma here. This would be where we want to build our colony, right on top of this. Now we've selected where we want to build it on the planet. We select the build tab, which is next to the scan tab at the top left, and we see we only have one option, that is the command center. So you left click on this, drag it wherever you want, left click to place it, and then click submit. And now we see all the other things available to be built on this planet have appeared because they are built by the command center. And our colony is making the planetary industry icon flash because it is now populated down here. This is the one we just made. I did make 5 other planets before recording. This is the 6th one I've just installed. It says there's no activity here, but this is where you find them all. You just double click on the planet to open it in planet mode. It's nice and easy. One important step you should not forget to do is to left click your command center and click upgrade, because the command center upgrade skill does not automatically and passively upgrade it. You have to manually do it yourself. I don't know why it's like this, but it is. So open it and then max it out as much as you can to get the maximum CPU and power grid, and click upgrade. There we are. Lovely. These resources are not static. This will deplete and run out, and it will move somewhere else. I know it's not realistic, but that's how it is. It's a game balance decision. So you don't just set up your colony here and never have to move. This eventually, as I said, will deplete and it'll move and pop up, or something better might pop up on the other side of the planet. But because your planetary command center never has to be connected to anything, you don't have to demolish it and go and buy a new one and set it up and upgrade it. You can just move everything else, or deal with having really long links to the new resource deposit. The next thing I'd like to build is a launchpad. Launchpads allow you to import and export things. You can export things directly from the command center with this launch button, but they don't hold very much cargo, only 500 cubic meters, and there is a cooldown on how fast they can do the launches, and believe me, a command center will not be able to keep up with even a moderately efficient system. So we'll build a launch pad, we'll just plop it close to the resource, then right click to deselect launch pad. When you use launch pads to launch things up into space, it will arrive at the customs office, which is in orbit around that planet, and doing so incurs taxes both to import and export. These taxes are based on the volume of goods exported as well as the tech level of them, but raw materials are much larger in volume than anything else, so exporting tier 0 raw materials will be extremely expensive. In high security space, the taxes are made up of 10% NPC tax, which is then added to the tax rate the owning player corp has set. The NPC portion of the tax rate can be reduced by training the customs code expertise, which used to be in planet management, which is now in trade. They moved it for some reason, so this reduces the Empire tax and customs offices by 10% per level, so level 5 this will be 50%, so it'll reduce the 10% portion of the tax rate down to 5. Right click here in the planetary industry window and select customs office and show info. Here we see the tax rate in the attributes tab. This is the corporation that own it, and they have set the tax rate at 12. Now this is including their cut, and as I do have customs code expertise level 5, the NPC portion of this is 5, so 5% is just wasted by NPCs and 7% goes to the owning corporation. Without that skill, this would be 17%, so I'm saving a little bit. Okay, the next thing we need to build is an extractor to actually extract things. So left click on extractor. This large circle is the radius at which it can extract things. So you want to put it as close to your launchpad as possible, so you have the smallest links, but you also want to have your resource totally within the circle, which won't be a problem here because we built everything right on it. When it's overlapping, it does go red, so you can't build it there, so we'll take it as close as we can without overlapping, be pixel perfect. And just there, left click. And now what we have to do is physically connect these two facilities with a road, which are known as links. So left click, create link, left click on one of the things you want to connect. Here we are, this is the road. As we see, as the distance increases, the power and CPU use increase as well. So we've put them as close as we could, pixel perfect. It's only 54 kilometers, it's using 19 power and 26 CPU, so we'll left click on the destination. Right, this is the road installed now with its little yellow highways, and then click submit. As we said, we don't particularly want to be exporting tier 0 raw items, so we'd rather convert them to tier 1 first, and to do that we're going to have to make some basic industry facilities. Now we'll just build one just now, so left click on this and put this next to the launch pad as close as we can, like that, good, and then create a link to link them together, so left click and then drag, snap it on it, left click and submit. Okay, so now we have an extractor for extracting raw materials, a factory to convert them to tier 1, and a launchpad to export them all. Good. So now we have to do some maths. We have to balance out the number of factories with the amount of materials being used. We're going to be producing plasmoids on this planet, and if we have a look at the planetary industry tab of the plasmoids info page, it says here the cycle time is half an hour, which means this is how long each cycle of this factory lasts for. And every half an hour it will use 3,000 raw resources and produce 20 plasmoids. This is where the math comes in. So over an hour, it's 6,000 raw resources an hour, or 144,000 per 24 hours. So we'll have to base everything on those numbers and balance out how much we're extracting with this and how many factories we need to deal with that much stuff, because we want to be efficient. We don't want to have lots and lots of raw resources built up and lying around, not being processed, but we don't want to build so many factories that this can't keep up and supply them all. So what we'll do, get rid of this, and get rid of this, we'll left click on our extractor and we'll click Install Extraction Program. This brings up this little window here. So you left click on the resource you want to extract, in this case it's suspended plasma. This brings back the heat map. These 10 blue dots here is your extractor heads, so you can activate as many of these as you wish, and you just click and drag them into place right on top of the resource deposit. As you'll see, these numbers here will move. This is basically telling you how much stuff each extractor head is going to get. So we'll just very quickly drag them all into place. Now the program duration, we've at the minute got it set for 1 hour, so after 1 hour the extractor will shut down and we'll have to come and restart it ourselves. You can be super duper lazy and set it to a 2-week cycle. And as you'd notice, as you increase the program duration, the size of the extractor head's extraction radius changes as well. And now we're starting to get all these negative numbers. That means that our extractors are overlapping and harming each other's yield, so you have to spread them out a little bit more. So if you do longer extractions, like the 2-week one, they will cover a huge area. Which means the ones further out will be getting less yield than we would when they were all tightly clustered within this small white area. It's up to you how lazy you want to be. You can quite easily set this to 7 days and only restart your extractors once a week. That's perfectly fine, but you'll have to do some maths and work out how many factories you're going to need. For this example, we'll just go to a day or something. You just use these plus and minus buttons here to accurately zone it in. And we'll change the heat map so it's a bit more accurate again. Okay, and we'll just drag everything so it's all back in place, nothing's overlapping. Okay, now what we have to pay attention to here is this total. This is the total amount of raw resources which will be produced over this period. So over 24 hours, we will be producing 1.2 million. So if you remember the math we did, we know that each extractor can handle 144,000. So we'll have to go 1223301. Divide that by 144,000, and that tells us that we are going to need to build 9 factories to be able to keep up with this extractor extracting this much stuff. So now you have to hope that your power grid and CPU actually allow you to build 9 factories. Well, let's have a look. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And of course they'll all have to be linked and daisy chained back to the first one, because that's the one that's linked to the launch pad. Okay, as we see, we do have enough power and we do have enough CPU for it, and we've got some left over. Well, what can we do with this left over? We can try and build a second extractor node. Well, we can build it, but we don't have any power grid left over for more extractor heads. So this is about as good as this planet can get for this particular day. So what we'll do, we'll just set it for a day. So we know that in total, over the next 24 hours, this is going to produce 1.2 million units of raw resource, and we know that 9 factories can handle that much over 24 hours. But this graph in the middle is what is now important, because the generation of resources is not level. It does not happen at an equal pace. As we see right at the start of the program, for the first few hours, it's going to be producing much more than it is towards the end. And it's producing so much that our 9 factories won't be able to keep up. Our factories can only deal with 27,000 units of raw resource coming in every half hour. So when we mouse over it, it tells us that at the start we're going to be producing 102,000 units per hour. And we can't handle that much. And the problem is that if we were to deliver raw materials straight from here to each of the 9 factories, the factories will chew through as much as they can, and any and all excess will be wasted. It's simply lost, it's deleted. So we'll be losing all this excess stuff here, will be lost. That's why I've built the launch pad here. Launch pads have storage of 10,000 cubic meters. So what we'll do, we'll tell the extractor head to deliver stuff to the launch pad and hold it there, and then we'll tell the launch pad to deliver it to the factories. So the launch pad will store all the excess and only deliver to the factories as much as they can handle. So this will, at the start of this process, it will build up quite a lot of excess, but then down here at the bottom, when it's only producing 52,000 an hour, the factories will have excess capacity by then, so they will then chew through the excess. So over the 24 hours, we will produce 9 factories worth of stuff, and all 1.2 million units of raw resource will be converted, and none of it will be wasted. That's why storage buffers like this are important, which is one of the other reasons I wanted a launch pad. There is a storage facility which you can build. See, it holds 12,000, but it is a building in its own right, and it does use power grid and CPU. You might as well just use a single launch pad, to be honest. When you're working in low sec and null sec, and especially in wormholes, when the yields on the heat map are absolutely insane, you probably will need more storage facilities, and you'll only need 5 or maybe 6 extractor heads. You won't need all 10 like we have here, otherwise you'll overwhelm everything. Okay, so we'll start the extraction. At the minute, we're not telling it to take the product anywhere, so it'll extract it happily and then it'll scatter it all over the surface because we haven't told it to do anything else. What we do is that we click on products, left click on it, it says not routed, and then left click create route. Then you simply click on a destination. As we said, we want the extractor to deliver things to the launch pad. Left click on the launch pad, make sure it populates here in the destination, and then click create route. If we zoom in, we'll now see a little blue line going up the road like this. This indicates the direction of travel. So we know that materials are coming from here and going to here. When we mouse over the link, we're seeing this percentage, which is 94.3. This is how much capacity of this road is being used. In higher yield systems, this may go over 100. If it does go over 100, you'll get a pop-up saying, no, we can't route everything up this road. The road needs to be upgraded. So in that case, you'll just click upgrade link and then click upgrade. This will cost you CPU and power grid, as it says. This is how much the upgrade costs. You don't have to do that when it's 94.3. You only have to worry if it goes above 100 and turns red. It's very good like that. Now what we'll have to do is to program our factories and tell them what we want them to build. So we'll click the first one. We want to build plasmoids, so we'll select plasmoids from the list, click install, and then it's asking us to select a destination. Where do we want this delivered to? The launch pad, please. And then we'll do exactly the same with all the other factories on this planet. It's a lot of clicking, but this is how Planetary Production is done. It has been changed over the years, and this is significantly less clicking than it used to be. Okay, so now we see a nice route of stuff, and when we mouse over each factory, you can trace the entire route. So this link in the middle is only 1.2% full, but this one is 2.4 because it's taking stuff from this factory, it's passing straight through this one and going into this one. And then this one's 3.6 because it's 3 factories worth of stuff is passing through, and so on and so on. When you click on a link, you can select routes and it tells you everything that's moving. You can do the same with the factories. You can click on the factory and select routes. So from this factory we have plasmoids outgoing, because this is what this factory is producing and sending out, and all the other plasmoids are transisting, which means they're coming from somewhere else, just passing through this along the road and then going straight back out again. So it's a good way of tracking your logistics. Now we have to tell the launchpad to deliver raw materials to these so they can work. So left click on the launchpad and select routes. Scroll down until you find your raw resource. Here it is. Select create route and then left click where you want it to go. Here, and then select create route. The factory is now stopped being red. It's now gone yellow, which means it's happy because there's stuff coming in and there's stuff going out. So again, we'll have to repeat this process with each and every one of our factories until they're all yellow. It's an absolute quick fest, but that's just how it is. Okay, that's all done now. Everything looks happy, so we'll click submit and get everything on the go. When we click on the extractor, we'll now see the time remaining is going down. The current cycle. This cycles every 15 minutes, so every 15 minutes it will deliver stuff to the launchpad. So at the minute the factories aren't doing anything, and they won't do anything for the next 15 minutes until they receive a delivery from the launchpad. Using the launchpad as storage is also a good idea, because any excess materials left over from this will be in the launchpad and nowhere else, and all the finished materials from all of these factories will be in the launchpad and nowhere else. This makes managing your colony really easy because everything is in one place. You just click in it and then click storage. You get a big long list of everything. But however, as I said before, when you're in wormhole space or nullsec and the yields are extremely high, one launchpad may not be enough. So then you can resort to using other storages in between this to act as buffer between the launchpad and everything else. Or you can simply build another launchpad, but I'm pretty sure that storage facilities use less power and CPU. Yeah, see, launchpads are 700 power and 3600 CPU, and storage are only 700 power and 500 CPU, and they're larger as well. So once this is all done, how do we get stuff off the planet? I'll have a look at one of the other planets I started yesterday so I can do this example. See here, the launchpad, this blue ring is how much cargo is inside it. See, this is the leftover excess raw materials, and this is the finished plasmoids. To launch stuff, you can either select launch from the launchpad itself, or you can right click the planet here, go to customs office and access customs office. They both open the same page. Exporting is really simple. The stuff on the right is the stuff that's on the planet. The stuff in the left is the stuff that's in the planetary customs office. You just click and drag from right to left and click transfer, and now it's in space. It's that simple. I do wish that they'd made this a bit more visually appealing, perhaps have an icon or a background of a planet here and the icon of the customs office here, because it's very confusing and people get confused and they often get this wrong. And to pick things up from the customs office, you just warp to it and then select it, open it like a cargo container and take your stuff out. Very, very simple. Now this customs office, there is only one per planet, but don't worry about that because the cargo inside it is private. No one else has access to your orbital customs office cargo, so you don't have to pick it up right away. Okay, so now we've got a bunch of tier 1 items made and taken off planet. So what do we do with them now? Well, I like to have one planet dedicated to nothing but a big bunch of factories and nothing else, for the express purpose of converting tier 1 stuff into tier 2, tier 3 and then tier 4. This factory planet does not extract anything. I do this for a few reasons. My extraction planets quite often won't have both resources needed to produce tier 2 on a single planet, and the ones that do would have to sacrifice some of their CPU and power grid to build advanced factories on the planet. I'd rather spend that power grid and CPU on more extractor heads to make more stuff. Tier 4 items can only be produced on temperate and barren planets. That's just a game balance choice the developers made when they created this activity. Luckily, barren planets tend to be absolutely teeny tiny in size, so their tiny radius is perfect for a dedicated factory planet. Teeny tiny little short links on a teeny tiny little planet means hardly any CPU and power grid use, which means you can build a ton of factories. For example, this is my factory planet. This is what it looks like. No extractors, just an absolute ton of advanced factories and 2 launch pads. Because these 2 launch pads are taking the materials from all 5 of my other planets. So I need to have enough storage to import things onto these planets. Again, you just open the customs office. You take your items from your ship, you put them in the left hand side, and then you drag them from the left hand side to the right hand side. And select transfer. And that's it. Very, very easy. Setting up factory planets is even more clicking, as each of these advanced factories needs to have 2 input routes, one for each of the Tech 1 materials. If you're making tier 3 or tier 4 in advanced or high-tech production plants, these need 3 inputs, so that's 3 times more clicking for you to be getting on with. Let's have a look at the insanity, which is the roots of this thing. Lots of incoming, lots of outgoing, lots of transisting. This took an age to set up. As we see, each of these factories is producing rocket fuel, which needs 2 different inputs. So it's taking 1 input from here and 1 input from here, combining them and converting them into rocket fuel and delivering it back to here. So this planet is churning out nothing but rocket fuel, and it's combining stuff from 5 different planets to make it. All we have to worry about now is the yields of each planet. Remember I said the resources on each planet change over time, so one planet that was really rich in resources could suddenly dry up, and then another one that was crap could suddenly become good, and it all becomes unbalanced. So your factory planet may become unbalanced if any one particular resource starts lagging behind all the others in terms of production. In my setup, as you see my full list here, I have 2 planets doing nothing but plasmoids, 2 planets doing nothing but electrolytes, and this 5th planet doing both. Now this 5th planet is the one that changes. The other 4 never change, they only just do that one resource. The 5th planet changes as needed just to balance out whichever is being produced least by the other 2. That's the way I do it. There are plenty of other ways of doing planetary production. Now when your resources move, say for example, if this resource was to dry up and this one was to become even larger than it is now and better, we could just move the extractors over here and draw big long links across the planet, but that obviously will chew up lots of power grid and CPU. You don't want to have really long links running like spider webs all over the planet, because you're wasting power grid and CPU building roads when you could be extracting more things. So it could be worth going into the build queue and going into decommission and just demolishing all the buildings and moving the entire colony over here. Like I said, the command center doesn't have to be connected to anything else. This is my command center over here. It's nowhere near the rest of the colony. As long as the rest of the colony is connected to each other, then production will continue. So you'll have to decide for yourself whether or not moving just the extractors over here and building a huge long link is better, or whether demolishing everything and moving everything over here would be best for you. As I said, there's lots of different ways of doing planetary production. Feel free to experiment and play around and see what works best for you. Tier 4 is particularly difficult to do on your own, as you need lots and lots of Tier 3, Tier 2 and Tier 1 inputs along the production tree. This is where making use of alts on your account or your corp members in your corp come in. Right, I think this video has gone on for far longer than I thought it was going to. I thought this was going to be a quick tour. So let's wrap it up here with a quick recap. First of all, decide what you want to build. Then work out which planets you need for that item and which system has those planets. Then buy command centers for those planets. Place the command centers and upgrade them. Place extractors and then balance out the yield on your extractors with the number of factories on that planet. Make use of storage buffers to account for the variations in extraction. And then export them somewhere else and import them to a factory planet for further processing. I hope this guide was informative and not overly confusing, and I hope you come back for the next one. Until then, do take very good care of yourselves. I'll talk to you again soon.